السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Inshallah ta'ala, today we'll talk about some of the benefits that we learned from Surah Al-Ma'arij. We finished Surah Al-Ma'arij, Surah number 70. So we'll talk about some of the benefits there, and if you have any questions also, inshallah. First of all, is any surah that we talk about, we should humble ourselves to the fact that this is the speech of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and it's always a benefit that we gain from the Quran. The more we get to know the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the more that we humble ourselves as human beings and to submit ourselves to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone. It's a reminder of the Day of Judgment, of course. This beautiful surah reminds us of the Day of Judgment and reminds us of the power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is above all, and the details of the Day of Judgment, the heart is in need of it in a constant way, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He reminds us of this for a great wisdom, because we get and we tend to forget. So the mention of the punishment of Allah, the rewards from Allah, and that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the most high, and then to be one of the verses that should always resonate in our hearts, which is فَاصْبِرْ صَبْرًا جَمِيلًا. Have beautiful patience in this life. When you read the Quran gives you that patience, because the matter becomes so clear. What's the purpose of this life? What's in the hereafter? And if a person is still alive, and whatever circumstances that we face, it's all by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And as long as a person is gaining rewards and he's not losing, and it's the best actions that he can be upon based on ilm and knowledge, what is the best combination than this? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best who is really the most successful person. Of course, the most successful person is the one that has al-Iman. Sometimes a person being poor, this is what is best for him. Being rich is what is best for him. Being in prison, this is what is best for some people. Being, not in prison, that's the best for other people. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. Yes, we always ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for al-afiyah. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for strength and for relief from all kinds of harm. But if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decree something upon someone, right, have a beautiful patience, because what's coming ahead, which is the moment of death, and what's after that is, there's so much horrors of the Day of Judgment, that to be patient in this life by seeking rewards from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is so that the person at the moment of death, he receives the best ever, and that is the Jannah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the verse talks about this, and how people will distance themselves from one another in the Day of Judgment, and its length is 50,000 years long, and some of the description of the hellfire. So again, the fear of Allah, that we need to really invest in our life to increase the fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so that we always steadfast upon the deen of Allah. The surah also talks about how human beings are, and this is throughout the Quran, is such an important verses, so that we as human beings, we don't live in deception while we think we know, right? And it's so easy for someone to think of himself in such a way when it's not. So you check these verses in the Quran, and we should assume that this is ourselves, and then we take the cure to it. So if the verses talks about the human beings being halu'a, that means we are created halu'a. We created like in that state to be always terrified. If some evil happens, a person is terrified and is miserable and so on. And if there is good things happens, a person start withholding stuff, becomes greedy. So we have to overcome these things by the actions that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned in the surah. As-salah, to be persistent in the salah. How salah is mentioned twice. They are consistently doing it forever, and they are guarding it, perfecting it. And then the rest of the characteristics of the believers, they give the known portion of their wealth for zakah, for those who deserve it, those who believe in the last day. They fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because this powerful ayah, inna adhab rabbihim ghayru ma'moon, because indeed the punishment of the Lord is not, nobody is safe from it. When a person thinks of himself that he's going to be saved from the hellfire, where did we get this guarantee from? There's no guarantee for anyone whatsoever. It's about being a believer and being steadfast upon the deen of Allah and guarding ourselves. It's a healthy fear, so that the person doesn't fall into al-qunut min rahmatillah, being in despair from the mercy of Allah, but at the same time not to be on the other extreme when people would relax, they're basically holding fast to their deen and they follow their desires, relying on the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the most merciful. Also, the punishment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is severe. And also to those who guard their chastity, those who protect their private parts, except in the halal way, and those who guard their trust, they're trustworthy, they don't betray their trust, and they're always upon what is upright. So these are the people of Jannah. So there's actions required in this life for a person to enter the Jannah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Also, the surah talks about the disbelievers and how evil their actions are. And they become in the state of disbelief because of their arrogance, because of making mockery of the truth, stubbornness, and so on. And if they humbled themselves to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they would have not been disbelievers whatsoever. And the punishment is waiting for them. And what they used to deny, it will become very apparent in front of them in the day of judgment. So don't be deceived by the ways of the disbelievers. And this is one of the common thing that makes many people deviate from the truth or commit sins, is they become deceived by the ways of the sinners or the disbelievers, and to try to please them and to be being in state of forgetfulness and following one's desires and things of that nature. So to be protected from all of that is by being obedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and by fulfilling these characteristics that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned in the Quran and in the Surah Al-Ma'arij about the believers, and to be warned against what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned as the characteristics of the disbelievers. The next surah is Surah Nuh. And again, it's Makki surah. And the way that really one important thing to be mentioned here, to learn the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is one thing, and it's an important and it's essential, and the virtue of al-ilm, of course, no doubt about this. But with the ilm, we need to really put ourselves into the acts of ibadah to Allah. So the ilm is a mean to establish the deen of Allah. So we need to put the effort to do the ibadah. Like when you make salah, we should perfect our salah. When we make the night prayer long as much as you can. Read Quran and seek rewards from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The ilm should have its effect on our ibadah, on our worship, on our manners. And Imam Ahmad rahimahullah, it was authentically proven that he used to pray 300 rak'ah a day. Nowadays, if someone talks like that, people will consider that bid'ah. Of course, it's not bid'ah. The best salah, the best subject is salah. He did not make a number where he says to the people, you have to pray this, that, and so. But this is how, he's busy with the salah. He's doing acts of ibadah to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then when someone visited Imam Ahmad rahimahullah, and he spent the night there in his house. So Imam Ahmad rahimahullah, before he left the person in his room, he left some water there for him to use. So when he came back at Fajr time, he saw that the water is still the same, was not used. So he asked him, and he said that he didn't use the water. He said, how can a talib ilm, how can a seeker of knowledge doesn't have a share of the ibadah during the night? It doesn't work that way. وَهَلْ يَسْتَوِي الَّذِينَ يَعْلَمُونَ وَالَّذِينَ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ? Are they equal? Are they like those who know and those who do not know? أمن هو قانت آناء الليل ساجدا وقائما يحذر الآخرة ويرجو رحمة ربه لا يستوي الذين يعلمون والذين لا يعلمون. The one that is devoted all night in salah and worship, fearing the day of judgment and hoping for the rewards from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, are they the same, those who know versus those who do not know? So this is one of the characteristics of the people of knowledge, is they follow the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. And it wasn't known to the early generations of Islam that a person is just busy with ilm or seeking knowledge and does not do the acts of ibadah. Of course not. I mean, where is the way of the Prophet ﷺ in this? So to put the effort and to be patient with reading Quran, with dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, with making salah, this is very important. And we put a portion every day for us to do so. And if you seek some form of ease for your livelihood matters, it will be made easy for you as much as you recite the Quran. The more you recite the Quran, the more ease you would find in this life. And you don't really gain the real benefit from that after 2-3 minutes of reciting, even though there's always goodness in anything. But try to seclude yourself in a way that you would recite the Quran without any interruption whatsoever for half an hour, for an hour, whether it's in salah or other than the salah. Then at the end, this is where a person would see some effect. Not that a person reads Quran or make dhikr and there's all kinds of distractions, phones, answering phones, looking at things. This is the ibadah is to have that level of devotion and to be devoted while doing the acts of ibadah. And this is what we learn from these verses, and we learn from the actions of the Prophet ﷺ, and we learn from the people of knowledge. And this is how to soften our hearts and to be obedient to Allah with these efforts to be done and to be put for the ibadah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you didn't have the surah memorized, try your best, inshallah. Wa sallallahu wa sallam wa baraka Muhammad wa sahbihi wa sallam. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.